The donor table is for families who actually contribute to this school. Mrs. Constance Whitmore announced loudly enough for the entire gala ballroom to hear, positioning herself between my 12-year-old son and the table where his friends were seated. Scholarship students should sit in the back. There's a table for financial aid families near the kitchen. We wouldn't want anyone to be confused about who really supports Westbrook Academy. My son Elijah's hands began shaking as nearby parents turned to watch his humiliation, and I saw tears forming in his eyes as he clutched his place card. But why did my husband Marcus remain perfectly calm? And why did he pull out his phone with an expression that made Mrs. Whitmore's triumphant smile freeze mid-formation? Yes, this is Marcus Thompson. I need to speak with someone in the development office immediately. It's about the new gymnasium. Mrs. Whitmore's smile vanished. I need you to cancel the donation check. All $4.2 million of it. Yes, I'm certain. There's been a change in how I feel about supporting this institution. The ballroom went silent. The headmaster, who had been greeting guests across the room, began moving toward us with obvious alarm. And Elijah, my brilliant, kind, scholarship kid son, looked up at his father with dawning understanding. Elijah had earned his place at Westbrook Academy entirely on merit. The school's entrance exam was notoriously difficult. Only 3% of applicants scored high enough for automatic admission. Elijah had scored in the 99th percentile, earning not just admission but Westbrook's most prestigious academic scholarship, the Founders Award, given to exactly one incoming student each year. The scholarship covered full tuition. What it didn't cover was the social reality of attending a school where most families had wealth measured in generations rather than accomplishments. We could have paid full tuition. My husband had sold his software company 3 years earlier for $127 million, and our net worth made most Westbrook families look modest by comparison. But we'd kept our wealth private. No flashy displays, no society page mentions, no visible signs of the fortune that sat quietly in investment accounts. We wanted Elijah to earn his achievements, not have them handed to him. We wanted him to know that his intellect, not our bank balance, had opened doors. The Founders Award scholarship had seemed perfect. Recognition of his abilities, not his parents' money. We hadn't anticipated what scholarship kid would mean in the social hierarchy of Westbrook Academy. Mrs. Constance Whitmore was the undisputed queen of Westbrook's parent community. Her family had attended the school for 4 generations. Her husband's name was on the library. Her donations funded the arts program, the athletic facilities, and the annual gala we were currently attending. She wielded her generosity like a weapon, ensuring everyone knew exactly who deserved gratitude and who deserved to be reminded of their lesser status. Financial aid families was her preferred term for scholarship students, a label that emphasized what they lacked rather than what they'd earned. She'd organized seating at school events to separate donors from recipients, created informal hierarchies that her son Bradley enforced among the students, and generally made clear that Westbrook had 2 classes of families: those who gave and those who took. Elijah had dealt with Bradley's bullying all year. The comments about his charity admission, the exclusion from birthday parties and social events, the constant reminders that he didn't really belong, that his scholarship was a favor the school could withdraw at any time. We'd encouraged him to focus on academics, to find friends who valued him, to remember that his admission was earned, not given. But tonight, Mrs. Whitmore had humiliated him publicly. In front of his classmates. In front of parents who would whisper about it for weeks. That was different. The headmaster, Dr. Richard Holloway, reached us within seconds. "Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, is there a problem?" I couldn't help but overhear. "The problem," Marcus said calmly, phone still pressed to his ear, "is that Mrs. Whitmore just publicly humiliated my son for being a scholarship student. She announced, quite loudly, that financial aid families should sit near the kitchen rather than with donor families." "I was simply explaining seating arrangements," Mrs. Whitmore started. "You were establishing a caste system based on perceived wealth. And you were doing it to a 12-year-old whose only crime was earning admission to this school through academic excellence." Dr. Holloway's face had gone pale. "Mr. Thompson, I assure you this isn't school policy. It's school culture, which means it's something you've allowed to develop." Marcus spoke into the phone. "Yes, I'm still here. Please confirm the cancellation and send written acknowledgement to my email. Thank you." He ended the call. "The $4.2 million gymnasium donation has been canceled. You'll need to find alternative funding." The ripple effect was immediate. Whispers spread through the ballroom. Parents who had witnessed Mrs. Whitmore's comments, and there were many, began connecting dots. The man she'd dismissed as a scholarship family, father had just canceled a donation larger than any the school had received in a decade. Mrs. Whitmore's confident expression had crumbled entirely. "Mr. Thompson, Marcus, surely we can discuss this. There's been a misunderstanding." "There's been no misunderstanding. You understood exactly what you were doing. You wanted my son to feel small. You wanted to remind him, and everyone watching, that he's lesser in your hierarchy because he earned his place rather than paying for it. I didn't know. That we had money? That's precisely my point. You didn't know, and you didn't care. You saw a scholarship student, and decided he deserved public humiliation. The fact that we could fund your entire gala 10 times over is irrelevant. What matters is how you treat people when you think they can't fight back." I'd remained silent through the exchange, my arm around Elijah's shoulders. Now I spoke. "Mrs. Whitmore, my son scored higher on Westbrook's entrance exam than any applicant in 15 years. He's maintained a 4.0 GPA while being excluded from social events, mocked by your son, and treated like a charity case by parents who assume scholarship means charity. Bradley would never. Bradley calls him welfare kid in the hallways. He's told other students not to partner with Elijah on projects because his family can't afford supplies. He's excluded him from every birthday party and social gathering since September." I let that sink in. Did you think we didn't know? Did you think Elijah didn't come home with stories about how the Whitmore family treats people like him? Mrs. Whitmore had no response. "We chose not to reveal our financial situation because we wanted our son to succeed on merit. We wanted him to know that his intelligence, not our money, earned his place here. You've spent an entire year trying to make him feel worthless for that same achievement." Dr. Holloway intervened desperately. "The Thompsons are valued members of our community regardless of financial contribution. Mrs. Whitmore's comments don't reflect Westbrook's values." "Then why has this culture been allowed to develop?" Marcus asked. "Why are there donor tables and financial aid tables? Why is seating at school events organized by contribution level? Why does my son know exactly which families give the most money? Because those families make sure everyone knows. Those are informal arrangements. Informal arrangements that you've permitted, that you've participated in, that you've benefited from, because donors like Mrs. Whitmore expect recognition for their generosity, and you provide it at the expense of students like Elijah." The headmaster had no defense. "The donation is canceled. We'll be evaluating whether Elijah continues at Westbrook based on how the school addresses this culture, not based on our ability to buy our way into respectability." The gala continued awkwardly. We took seats at a table near the front, a donor table, as it happened, though we sat there as a family rather than as representatives of wealth. Elijah was quiet, processing everything that had happened. "Dad, you didn't have to cancel the donation," he said finally. "The gymnasium would have been good for everyone. The gymnasium wasn't contingent on Mrs. Whitmore's behavior. But my response to her behavior is contingent on my values. I won't fund an institution that allows parents to humiliate children based on perceived economic status. But the other kids will have a gymnasium eventually, one way or another. What they witnessed tonight is more important. That bullying has consequences, that wealth doesn't equal worth, and that some things matter more than buildings." Elijah considered this. "She really didn't know we had money? She really didn't. And that's the point, buddy. She treated you badly because she thought you couldn't matter. She would have treated you differently if she'd known, which means her behavior was never about values. It was about power." The aftermath unfolded over the following weeks. Mrs. Whitmore resigned from the PDA board, not voluntarily, but after enough parents expressed discomfort with her continued leadership. Her public humiliation of a 12-year-old had crossed lines that even Westbrook's wealthy families found distasteful. Bradley Whitmore suddenly faced social consequences of his own. Students who had tolerated his behavior or participated in it began distancing themselves. The welfare kid narrative collapsed when everyone learned that Elijah's family could have bought Bradley's family's home with pocket change. Dr. Holloway implemented new policies about event seating and donor recognition, attempting to address the culture we'd exposed. Whether those changes would be meaningful remained to be seen. And Elijah himself changed. He walked taller, spoke more confidently, stopped apologizing for his scholarship status, and started owning it as the achievement it was. The gymnasium donation was eventually reinstated, with conditions. We required the school to establish a fund supporting scholarship students with incidental expenses. Field trip costs, sports equipment, supplies for projects. We required the elimination of visible distinctions between paying families and scholarship families at school events. We required anti-bullying training that specifically addressed economic discrimination. The gymnasium would bear no family name. Instead, a plaque would read, "Built through community generosity, where every student's worth is measured by character, not contribution." That's a lot of words for a plaque, Elijah observed. Important ideas take space. Do you think it'll actually change anything? Maybe. Probably not completely. But it's a start. Mrs. Whitmore never apologized directly. She sent a formal note through her attorney, something about regrettable misunderstandings and unfortunate circumstances. The note carefully avoided admitting wrongdoing, while technically acknowledging that the incident had caused unintended distress. Elijah read it and shrugged. She's not sorry for what she did. She's sorry she got caught. You're probably right. That's sad, actually. She can't even see that she was wrong. She just knows she got in trouble. Some people never learn the difference between consequences and lessons. They avoid consequences without absorbing lessons. I hope I'm never like that. You won't be. You already understand something she never will. That how you treat people when you think it doesn't matter is exactly when it matters most. Elijah graduated from Westbrook Academy 6 years later, valedictorian. His speech didn't mention the gala incident directly, but he spoke about worth and value, about how institutions and communities define success, about the difference between what you have and what you contribute. I came to this school as a scholarship student, he said. Some people thought that made me less. But I learned that merit isn't diminished by how it's funded. Achievement isn't lesser because it's earned rather than bought. And character, how we treat each other, especially when we think no one's watching, is the only currency that actually matters. In the audience, I saw a few parents shift uncomfortably. The Whitmores weren't present. Bradley had transferred to another school years ago, and his parents had quietly withdrawn from Westbrook society. But their absence didn't matter. What mattered was Elijah, standing tall, owning every achievement he'd earned over 6 years of academic excellence. Worth something? Worth everything. She said scholarship kids don't sit with donors. She said it loudly, publicly, to a 12-year-old boy who had earned his place through brilliance. She thought she was establishing hierarchy, reminding him of his status, putting him in his proper place. She didn't know his father had just written a $4.2 million check for the new gymnasium. She didn't know we could have bought her seat, her table, her family's entire legacy at that school. But that's not why her world collapsed. Her world collapsed because she revealed who she was, someone who measures children by their parents' checkbooks. The donation was canceled. But the real loss wasn't money. It was the illusion that wealth equals worth. My son is worth more than any building. He always was.